My name is James Fenlon. I'm the village administrator in the village of Little Chute, Wisconsin. I originally grew up in northeast Wisconsin, born and raised about 30 miles east of the Fox Cities, and spent some time in the military. I spent some time advocating for veterans on Capitol Hill, for wounded warriors and their families, and then spent 2 years at the Pentagon working for the Office of Chief of Naval Operations, working mainly in acquisition, readiness, and financial management. I met my wife in 2011 and we were married, and 2 years later we found out we were expecting, and it was apparent to me that now was the time, strike while the iron was hot, so to say. Didn't want to raise a family in the city in Washington, D.C., and while we probably would have been able to afford a great quality of life for a family there, we knew that the characteristics and all the things that we were looking for to raise a child in weren't really all there. We wanted to have that smaller town feel, be closer to family. We wanted to raise our child in an area that has great public schools. So one of the biggest things for us, my wife and I owned a home in Alexandria, Virginia, in a great neighborhood. When I look back at where we lived, we had a great small town, our Main Street feel, and however the cost of living was just a little bit outrageous. And then when we can come back to the Midwest and find a home in a nice neighborhood, low to no crime, starting out in the 150s, that you can't beat that. Pretty much it's getting to the point where there's organizations out there that are striving to have the entire region be bicycle friendly. And you could bicycle from Little Chute down to Oshkosh, for example. And I think that's something that's important. That's something that when I was in a metropolitan area that I enjoyed having, accessible bike lanes. Every community has their own summer event. Cheese Fest, Paper Fest, Chicken Fest, you name it. There's all these festivals, and really these communities are using it as a fundraiser, but they're also using it to celebrate their culture and their history. It's pretty easy to get up and go to work in the morning when you're knowing you're tackling the major issues, whether it's how are we going to pay for street infrastructure to how are we going to keep and maintain a competitive tax rate. So my wife grew up in Houston, Texas, so another huge metropolitan area, and then lived in DC for 8 years, and we happened to meet halfway between our time in Washington. So she'd spent a number of weekends coming back to Wisconsin for weddings, for community festivals, all the things that what I knew was great about here. I was bringing her back. We came to a Packer game. So she knew I gave her just enough to make her interested. And when we started talking about having a family and raising a family, just based on our numerous trips here, she knew that there's probably no better place in America to raise a family. Big thing for her, she had a career as well. But literally, in the time we moved here, us having a child, within 3 months she was fully employed, doing very similar work to what she was doing in Washington, D.C.